Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the live stream today. Second week in a row doing this on a Saturday afternoon. Hope you all are having a good day. I am very much not used to doing content live versus pre-recorded and edited, so bear with me here as I try to navigate all the different things happening on my screen at the same time. But I hope you guys are doing well. Appreciate anybody hanging out with me today as I break down some of these trades that you guys sent over in the Pure Potential Discord. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, and I'm just going to go ahead and break them down in order, the order they were submitted to me. I did not prepare for this, so I've got the trades. I have the league information in front of me, but otherwise we're just going to be winging it, and I'm just going to walk through my thought process with these trades, and I'm sure some player takes are going to come up. I'm sure some strategy elements are going to come up, and it should be a good time. I'm just checking now to see if my chat features are working here. So if anybody wants to drop a message in chat, I would love to know if I can actually see it. But anyway, we're going to get started here in just a second with these trades. And distract ourselves from the fact that Rashee Rice and Malik Neighbors and Nico Collins and Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey and seemingly half of the other good players in the NFL are not suiting up tomorrow. It's been kind of a bummer, honestly. All the injuries, I feel like. Oh, okay, I am getting some chat right now. I don't know why it's not popping up on my screen here on OBS. Give me 1 second. Just try to pull this up. The technical difficulties have been a regular occurrence, unfortunately. Nothing seems to work correctly. Last time I lost my camera for about half the stream. I think I've got that problem solved, but truly we truly never know. All right. Well, I'm gonna try real quick to get this chat up so I can put you guys on the screen here. I see Bindle's in the chat. I see some regulars in the Discord in the chat here. Let me see what's going on with this stupid thing. Oh, man. All right. So our first trade here, I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. And let's see here. There we go. So this is the first trade that was submitted today. We're going to start with this one. I think it's a pretty easy one to break down. But it's just Puka Nacua straight up for Rome Odunze. I'm assuming our guy is getting the left side because I think that's typically how it's formatted. So for me, this is a 12-team super flex PPR, pretty normal dynasty setup here. And I mean, this is just a really easy trade to get the Puka Nacua side. You know, I think Rome Odunze is a good player. I think he's going to have a successful career, but I mean, we already saw Puka do it. Like we saw him have the historic rookie season. I don't know how much longer he's going to be out, but a few weeks is really not going to be the difference for me, especially with Rome not really producing at a high level right now anyway. So I don't think points, immediate production should be a factor here. It's just which player are you going to want in the long term? More than likely, that's going to be Puka. Maybe Rome gets to a point where he surpasses him. It's definitely possible, but I'm going to take the known commodity here pretty easily. And a little bit of extra context here from Jake, who submitted the trade. He's actually rebuilding. So this is all all the better. No need for the production now. Anyway. All right. Where's the chat? This is irritating me, if you can't tell. Sorry, chat. Working on it. Trying to get the chat up on the screen here. With OBS, see, okay, here's the thing, guys. All the fancy YouTubers, they use StreamYard at this point. And the thing about StreamYard is that if you don't have $70 a month to shell out for all the premium features, it's no good. So the quality's not good. You can't do all the fun, fancy stuff. So I am using OBS, which is free. Unfortunately, you have to do a bunch of like third-party apps and stuff to get simple things like chat on the screen. Oh, there we go. This is the first message that finally popped up in my streaming platform from Bread. I don't even know the context here. I don't know if I'm the one being forgiven or someone else, but I think we got chat in the. I think we got chat going now. So we'll see. I'm gonna jump here to our next trade, which comes in from Spook in the Discord. 12 team, start 11, Superflex, half PPR. We've got Baker first. Hold on one second. Baker, a third, and a 2026 first for Jacoby Brissett, Aaron Jones, Jalen Waddle, Skylar Thompson, Ty Chandler. All right. We're just going to cross out Brissett and Thompson here because that's not relevant. Obviously, Jalen Waddle would be the most valuable piece in this trade. It's possible that the Baker hype has gone so far that he's ranked ahead of Waddle in some of these platforms. But for me, Waddle's definitely the most valuable piece here. And then you have Baker, and then you have Jones and Chandler. So Jones and Chandler together may be worth about an early second. I think this is fairly even because I view Baker as like a late first type of asset right now. And then you have that 2026 first, which should have the potential to land just about anywhere, with it being, a year out. Waddle I have is a little bit more than a first, maybe like a mid first. So if we say, I'd say Baker in the first for Waddle, Jones, and Chandler is somewhat even. I typically would prefer to get the best player in the deal, but I don't mind that you're getting that future first, and I would assume addressing a need at quarterback with Baker, who, like, as much as I've tried to discount him this offseason and I didn't think he was going to replicate his success from last year, he has looked really good. At the very least, we know this is a guy who's a locked-in starter. He's clearly capable of having these high-end spike weeks, so I don't mind it at all. Tyler, to answer your question here real quick, that I'm never benching Jalen Hurts. That's just an easy call for me. AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Lane Johnson are all back this week. I'm not benching Hurts. I guess this is a one quarterback league because otherwise you just would play both. All right. Two trades down. I've got 22 more in the chamber here. We'll see if we can get to all of them. How do I get my trades roasted? Theo, that's a great question. If you want to get your trades roasted, this is the first time I'm doing this, but if it goes well, I'm happy to do it again. There's a link in the description to the Pure Potential Discord. A few days ago, I just asked if anybody wants me to roast their trades, drop them in the Discord with some league info, and I will roast away. And that's what we're doing now. So if you want to catch all of my announcements about upcoming videos, if you want to chat about Dynasty, if you want to join a pretty big and growing community that's talking Dynasty 24/7, you can join the Pure Potential Discord. That's totally free. Now, there are member channels where you can access by becoming a YouTube member, and I'm pretty active in those, giving advice and helping to kind of form trades and things like that. But if you just want to join the free channels down there, there's a lot of conversation going on. This next deal comes in from Clanger34. It's a 12-team PPR Superflex, start 10. This is a competing team. And the 2025 first that they sent away is probably the second, the 102 in the class, which is definitely big context here that's a really early first. Otherwise, it would be really easy to say the Gibbs side because you just cancel out the 26 firsts. And obviously, I would trade a 25 first and Charbonnet for Gibbs. With it being the 102, I'd say this is pretty even. I definitely don't know who the 102 in rookie drafts is going to be. Thinking ahead right now with the quarterback class not looking terribly impressive, it's probably Ashton Janty at 1, and then maybe Tet McMillan second. That seems realistic. And I'm sure he's going to be valued really, really highly coming out, like we saw with players like Malik Neighbors. I don't know if he'll match the Marvin Harrison hype, but Malik Neighbors was an early 3rd round startup pick this offseason. So you can try to eyeball the value on those picks by doing that. I'm still going to take Gibbs here, though. Unless you know something about these 2026 firsts that I don't, I think it's reasonable to trade that early first away for Gibbs, who I have ranked as the RB1 in Dynasty after last week. He wasn't playing last week, but Bijan and Bryce just annoyed me enough that I moved them below Gibbs. So anyway, I think this is a fine move for a competing team to go ahead and add a legitimate difference maker, a running back who's also extremely young. All right. Easy one. Next trade comes in from the same manager. So Clanger 34, you're getting 2 trades roasted today. I haven't really roasted any deals yet. I've actually liked the receiving end of these 3 so far. This one's another 12-team Superflex PPR start 10. Another competing team. We're getting Ayuk, McBride, and a 3rd for Pitts, Cook, and McConkey. I mean, you're trading away Kyle Pitts, so that counts for something in my book. This is the one that I actually have to think about for a second because there's a lot of pieces involved. The most valuable piece in this deal is easily Trey McBride. It doesn't actually say if this is a tight end premium. That would matter to me if it was tight end premium. But let's say for the sake of argument that it is. I've got Trey McBride at 1.25 base firsts in my rankings. I've got Cook in the tier below. I've got Ayuk in the tier just below. I'm willing to kind of cancel those 2 players out. So it's really McBride for McConkey and Pitts. And as much as I like Ladd, I think that that's a fine price to pay for the upgrade at tight end. I think McBride is right up there as my Dynasty tight end 2. I have him in a tier of his own behind Brock Bowers, but ahead of like Laporta and Kincaid. His peripherals this year have been really strong. I think that's something people don't realize because he had a really weird week 1. He had an injury where he missed a week, but his peripheral numbers have been great. He is the primary read in that offense, more so than Marv so far. I assume that will shift as Marv gets more experience, but McBride is a huge part of that passing game. So I really like acquiring him. Logan, I see. Yeah, your trade made the thumbnail. I think you're going to like what I have to say about that one, but I've been really loving Ken Walker lately. So I liked the idea of getting him into the thumbnail. All right. Next deal comes in from Brandino, 10-team Superflex, which, really important to know that it's Superflex in this trade without any quarterbacks. Half PPR, no tight end premium, start 9. Okay. It does actually matter if it's Superflex because there's a first involved, and first round picks in Superflex are easily more valuable than one quarterback because it pushes the depth down where those late firsts end up having a lot more value in Superflex. But I like Eric All. I wouldn't necessarily say he's like a core piece of a trade like this, but I like him enough to more or less cancel him out with Moss. I'd still lean Moss in a non-tight end premium, which is what this is, but you're getting a first in exchange for Hockenson. I don't know anything about where this first is projected right now, but I think in non-tight end premium, I'm pretty comfortable taking a first for him. It's just the position just doesn't add enough. Like, even the top guys, they just don't add as much of an advantage in non-tight end premium, where I'm usually willing to shell out a first. For somebody like Brock Bowers, for somebody like Trey McBride, sure. But the kind of poorly kept secret about Hockenson is that he's never actually had the most dominating peripheral numbers. Last year, he was trending towards his best season, but he's never been like a Travis Kelce type of target hog. And I'm typically one to just go all the way down at tight end in non-premium rather than targeting some of those like middle middle of the tier guys. And the fact that Hockenson's going to take some time to get back up to speed does matter to me here. Like he might come back in week 7, but I don't think you're going to see prime TJ Hockenson until maybe the end of the year, if at all this year. So I'm totally fine with this deal. All right. This next trade comes in from one of our YouTube members, Manga Girl 100, which I don't actually know. I guess they're the top of this trade, just knowing how Sleeper typically shows these trades. It says it's a 12-team start 9, super flex half PPR, not tight end premium, tanking for the 101, and the first is projected top 4. The second is my own pick back. Okay, so this is a rebuilding team. They're getting the top end of the deal. Jaden Reed, a 25 first, which is projected top 4, and a 25 second. I love Kyler Murray. Huge Kyler Murray enthusiast, but this is an easy accept for the package side, especially on a rebuilding team. That top 4 pick might not even be valued that far beyond Kyler. I think Jaden Reed shouldn't be valued that far beyond Kyler right now. Like, I have Kyler as like a late first, early second round startup pick. I think Jaden Reed should be a 3rd round startup pick. I think that 104 is probably a 3rd round startup pick. Plus, you're getting your own second, which should be 201, 202 if you are tanking. So that's more than enough value. I think I'm honestly impressed that you could get that for Kyler, because I've tried to shop him in some leagues just for the fact that I have like way too much of him. I'm starting him in like 40% of my leagues every week, and that's just like nerve wracking for me. So I've been trying to shop him a little bit, but I never get anything like this type of a return. So that's kind of crazy. Good job. Good job. Can you guys send me some bad trades? I want to live up to the title here and actually roast you a little bit, but apparently I've already taught you too well how to master the art of the deal here. Trade number 7 is the inspiration for our thumbnail today. It comes from Logar18 in the Discord. And looks like he may have sent me a couple. I'm not sure if they all made it in here, but this is the first one he sent me. He got 2 firsts and Jamison Williams for Ken Walker, a 2nd and a 4th. And this is a start 11, 10-team Superflex, PPR, non-tight end premium. It says his picks are likely... So the picks he sent away, likely the 201 and the 401. I'm still going to take the Jamison Williams side here. I really like Kenneth Walker. I moved him way up in my rankings. I have him as my Dynasty RB5 now, and I actually have him in the same tier that I have Gibbs, Bijan, Bryce, Achane, and Walker. I have Walker at the bottom of that tier. I think it's much closer in that group than it was to start the year, because Bryce and Bijan are not getting the level of usage that we were hoping. Gibbs has continued to be really good, really efficient. He's kind of stayed stagnant where he was, but Achane and Walker have come up to meet him after their roles have been much better than I thought. And then Bijan and Bryce have come down after their roles have been not quite as good. So those 5, I think they're the clear top 5, closely followed by like Jonathan Taylor after that. And I love Walker. But that being said, to get 2 firsts for Walker plus Jamison Williams, which I'll say is, I would say Jamison is kind of a wash with the 201 and the 401, maybe a slight nod to Jamison Williams, but either way, 2 firsts for a running back, especially if you're in a rebuilding season, super fair in my opinion. So I do like this deal for you. And okay, it looks like I might have just taken that one trade from the ones you sent me. So hopefully you're happy with that evaluation. This one comes in from Bread, who was was the guy that I featured on the chat right when we got this chat thing working. This trade is pretty straightforward. Brooks and a 2nd for Benson and a 1st. But the little added context here is this is a 1 quarterback league. And the 2nd is going to be very early. The 1st is probably mid. This is a rebuilding team. It's an interesting deal. You know, the mid first does definitely carry some value. Even in 1 quarterback, you're going to have enough depth in the first round. And I don't know. I like Brooks. I mean, I do like Brooks as a prospect. I think he's actually coming into a better situation than we might have thought at the beginning of the year. But I don't know if I'm sending Benson in a first for him, because in a rebuild situation, you might see Benson get a chance, following this year to actually be that guy. I don't know. It feels like a deal you didn't have to make. I think it's probably fine. The player that you would get with that first, if it lands at like 107, 108, maybe you don't like them as much as you like Brooks heading into next year. If it ends up being top 4, top 5, you're probably going to wish you had the pick. So I feel like I would just wait here and see where that pick shakes out before I make a move like this. So not my favorite deal, not a bad deal, but that's where I lean. This is good context. I don't know. Maybe have a little more willpower, or just stop responding to the messages. But again, it could definitely work out in your favor. You're going to want that first to end up being a little bit later, and you're probably going to be kicking yourself if we see Benson take over as that lead back in Arizona. But by no means is that a guarantee. I'm going to throw this up here real quick just because it doesn't take much thought to answer it. This is way too much for Tank Dell. I love Tank Dell. It's way too much. Okay. So, okay, now you're just bragging. Now you're just bragging. But we do love to see it. All right. Next deal comes in from Hunto. 12-team Superflex. Tight end premium plus. I'm not sure if that means it's like a mega premium, but I don't see any tight ends here, so it doesn't matter. Start 10. First year of the league, bottom of the league in wins, so leaning towards a rebuild. That's a bummer. Hate to see it. The first will be late. I guess he means the 25 first. So we've got Pacheco, 2 firsts and a third for A.J. Brown and Tony Pollard. On a rebuilding team, I don't hate it. A late first and a 26 first is probably about right for A.J. Brown. And then you have Pacheco, who I would say would be a slight upgrade on Pollard, especially for a rebuilding team. He's a little bit younger. He's obviously not scoring points right now, which you can see as a plus. I will say, I think some people are a little bit higher on Pacheco right now than I am. I don't think he's going to come back this year and be super effective, which, again, in the context of this deal doesn't really matter. But I do think it matters for his dynasty value carrying over from one season to the next, because he is an undrafted free agent. He's going to be 26, I think, soon. Like next year is his age 26 season. And I think next year is the last year of his deal with Kansas City. So my worry is if he comes back this year and struggles, doesn't look that great heading into the offseason, I don't think it would take much for a full-blown panic to form about the Chiefs bringing in another running back, drafting a running back in what looks like a really good class. I would much rather invest in a running back that is scoring points for me right now and not necessarily roll the dice on Pacheco, who I think is maybe a little bit more fragile than some people are giving him credit for. But that being said, I think this is a fine deal for a rebuilder. I would say when Pacheco does come back, if he looks good, you would then look to deal him as a rebuilder. I don't think he's the kind of guy you really need to carry with you into the offseason. But that's just my 2 cents. Next one from... Oh, this is back to Logar 18 from before. He sent another trade in, and I thought this one was interesting. So we have Fields. So he's receiving Fields, Maye, a second, and a 2026 first, sending away Keenan Allen, Joe Burrow, and a 2025 second. And I guess this is from the same league. He's rebuilding in this league, from what I remember. Yeah. So if he's sending away his own second, that would be an early one. I look at this as, yeah, I think this is fine. I would look at Justin Fields and the second as kind of a wash. So you cancel that out. So you're getting Maye, a second, and a first for Joe Burrow and Keenan Allen. On a rebuilding team, I don't mind this. And there's definitely risk involved in taking Burrow and tearing down to Maye because we don't know how good Drake Maye is. But there's also a lot of value upside in a deal like that because Burrow doesn't really have a lot of room to rise from where he's sitting right now, whereas Maye obviously does have a lot of room for that if he comes out and looks good. And then the first round pick obviously has a lot of room for that as well. Over time, that's going to gain value guaranteed. So I think this is a fine deal. I'm obviously high on Drake Maye, which doesn't hurt. So yeah, and it gets points out of your lineup. So I think it's pretty good. Do I trade Bijan? I mean, this question just is impossible to answer without knowing for what. Like, do you trade? I mean, I don't know. His perception across leagues right now is very wide ranging because some people are really frustrated with how he's been so far, and other people are maybe taking more of a long view with it. So it depends what you're getting, right? I don't think he is like a top 15 super flex asset anymore. I have him in the late 20s. I have almost like a 2-3 turn player in the startup conversation right now. So it's in most leagues, you're probably going to want to hold him. You're probably not getting what you want. And the guy's going to have a big game at some point. He's going to have a 2 touchdown game at some point. Like, he is a good player. They're using him in a weird way. He's been dealing with a nagging injury, but overall, I would say he's going to do better moving forward than he has so far. So I'd say exercise patience. All right. Yeah, this is a good move. This is a good move. I think Fields has been better than expected. I didn't think he was going to get this kind of run early in the season, but we have Russ practicing in full. He's going to be active for the game this week. I don't think the leash is going to be super long for Fields, and he could even get benched in a situation where he doesn't necessarily deserve it, but he will be the scapegoat for anything that goes wrong for the Steelers offense. And we already know Arthur Smith doesn't want to play his best players, so that's not really putting Fields in a position to succeed. Najee Harris is completely ineffective. I just think he could get scapegoated real quick and he could find himself on the bench, and you're going to be really happy that you have that first. If you could trade DK for Nico, I would do it. Yeah, 100%. I have Nico as a easy top 20 dynasty asset according to my rankings. I think he's awesome. I think he's just a tier behind Chase and Jefferson and those guys. So I would trade DK for him. I can handle 4 weeks, without Nico's production. Okay. Next deal comes from Smig. Let's pull it up here. He's getting Rashee Rice and Roman Wilson. So, said another way, he's just getting Rashee Rice. And he's trading away George Pickens, Rashid Shaheed, and Eric All. So in my last video, if you guys haven't checked that out, came out a couple days ago, I highlighted some more possible trade targets. And let me know if you guys liked the format of that one, because it feels like right now in the middle of the season, talking about potential trades is just going to be more valuable than strategy stuff. I plan to hammer Dynasty strategy all off season, but I feel like in season you need more player takes, more like practical, hands-on. This is what you can do right now. So that was my thought process with that one. But I did talk about Rashee Rice and how I think he can be a buy or a sell depending on your situation. And this would be an example of a time that I would buy him. Okay, I like buying him here because you're not giving up any kind of core asset for him. I think Pickens is a good player, but he is in truly a terrible situation right now. Shaheed's proven himself to be a much better player than I thought. And Eric All is interesting, but let's not get over our skis, right? So I think with Rice, I think you're getting a player who guaranteed is scoring more than any of these guys next year in his games that he's active. And I just think you can consolidate these 3 pieces into Rice without necessarily hamstringing your team. Like, nobody's team is being fully propped up by Pickens and Shaheed, and definitely not Eric All. So it's a chance to get a wide receiver that can truly be a difference maker for you when healthy at a discount. And that's just almost always a good idea to do. Okay. So good one, Smig. I guess I should change the video title to roasting your trade partners, because I don't know. I keep liking all of your trades. Guaranteed, referring to Rice here, guaranteed missing this season and maybe the next season or 6 games minimum. Yeah, I mean, we know he's missing this season, obviously. But we don't know about this. He's not missing any time next season due to injury. The injury he has now, he will be 100% recovered from by the offseason. So not only is he not missing time due to injury next year, because he didn't tear the ACL, he's probably not going to miss any offseason activities either. So we're only concerned about the suspension. And I don't know. I don't think it's going to be more than half a season. It's probably going to be at the beginning of the season. So you're going to have him for the games that matter most. It's just not enough of a concern for me to really move his value down. Like, I moved his value down a ton because he's not going to play the rest of this year. I had him as like a top 20 dynasty asset. The guy was scoring 20 points per game, and I didn't think that was going to stop. But you take away the rest of this season, you're still getting back a 25-year-old wide receiver who's tied to Patrick Mahomes in an absolutely killer role next year. So I still think that's very valuable. And like I said, I think it's valuable enough to trade away George Pickens, who's giving you like 12 points per game right now, and Rashid Shaheed, who has looked good. His quarterback is now hurt. We have no idea how functional Spencer Rattler's going to be. And Shaheed is like a fake young player where it seems like he's early into his career, but I'm pretty sure he's like 27. So I'm not that worried about sending him away in this type of a trade. All right. This next one, look, you're getting Justin Jefferson here. This comes from Clutch Sports, 12-team Superflex PPR, half tight end premium. Still have a projected early 25 first. Okay, that's good. You're getting Jefferson here, trading away Olave, Ken Walker, and a first. This one is hard to stomach. Stud players are always worth more than they seem like they should be. So it's okay to overpay for them. I have Jefferson at just under 3.5 base firsts. I have Walker right now at 1.5. I have Olave at 1.25. And then you have that other first, which I assume is your own first, and you seem to be a contender. So 2.75 plus 1. It's honestly, it's just about fair, I'd say. If you have so much buying power on your team and you have so much depth at the scoring positions, it doesn't, I don't think you can necessarily lose a trade like this when you're getting Justin Jefferson, just because he's so safe. His value is so insulated. He's scoring so many points, but it definitely hurts to lose all of those assets to get Jefferson. So I view Justin Jefferson as kind of a luxury piece where if you can afford to go get him, then go get him, because you're never going to regret having Jefferson on your team. Back to the Rashee Rice conversation. Do we think the price drops more as the season goes on and the absence is felt more by contenders? That's definitely possible. And I think I'll find myself as more of a buyer later in the year. But that doesn't change the fact that I think that trade was just fine on paper. Like, I think you're playing a dangerous game if you're not taking a fair at market price on a player you like because you think you'll get a better deal later. Because we don't know what that particular manager is going to think. What if their season goes sideways and then they decide, I'm just going to keep Rice because I don't need the points anymore? Then you can't make that trade. So I think, yeah, you might have more luck generally across all your leagues making a trade for Rashee Rice later in the year. But if somebody throws a trade in front of me that I already like, I'm just going to take it. Hector asks, was it a good idea to trade Brian Thomas Jr. and Charbonnet for Tank and a mid to late first? Unfortunately, Hector, I would say no, it was not a good idea. I think Brian Thomas is a superstar in the making. Maybe he's not Justin Jefferson, maybe he's not Ja'Marr Chase, but he is fast tracked to the like Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown zone. I already have him like borderline top 24 in my rankings. Actually, I might have him higher than that. I have him very high. And so I think you maybe undersold him a little bit. All right. Back to the trades here. We are sitting at 13 out of 24. So we are about halfway done with these trades. We'll see if I can get to all of them. I would like to keep this to about an hour if we can. This one comes from Hercules in the Discord. Great movie, by the way. One of my absolute favorites from the Disney archives. 10-team Superflex, PPR, competitive rebuild. I don't know what a competitive rebuild is. Sold high on Roshan hype, owns Brooks. Maybe you mean competitive as in a lot of teams are rebuilding, and so it's a competition to get out of points, but you're taking on points. I don't know. I'm going to ignore that part of it because I don't know what it means. Getting Josh Downs alone for this package is theft. Like literally so easy to make this trade. Like Josh Downs 100% over Rico Dowdle and Roshan Johnson. Josh Downs is legit awesome. To get Chuba Hubbard on top, who I think is at the very least a very valuable handcuff once Brooks comes back, I think he could have his own standalone value and startable role for most of this season, if not all of it. And he's a free agent next year. So who knows where he lands, right? This is just such a smash deal for you. Like, I didn't know Roshan Johnson had hype. So great job. Truly impressive stuff. All right. Here we have one from Adj. Okay. Now I feel stupid. After reading the whole username, it's AJ. AJ the Beast. Getting a first, what he says is a late first for Tank Bigsby and a mid-second. Always going to take the first in a deal like this. Always. First round picks are just such a finite resource, such a valuable resource. When you can get a first and give up a second and something else, like something small like Tank Bigsby, who's at the very best, Tank Bigsby is worth a second at the absolute best. So yeah, am I trading 2 seconds for a first? 100%. Even if it is late. But remember, going into week 6 of the season, no first is locked in to be super late. Like, a lot of things can still happen. Look at how many players are already hurt. If the next handful of players that gets hurt are on that team, all of a sudden that first doesn't look so late anymore. So this is a great format. Anytime you can trade a player that's getting some hype, throw in a second and find your way into a first. Over time, that's just going to lead you to acquiring a lot of value on your team. Sent James Conner and Diggs for Higgins and a first. Did you cook or get cooked? You absolutely cooked. Are you kidding me? Higgins, let's just call it Higgins for Diggs. That's a smash. And a 25 first for Conner is like beyond a smash. I mean, you did not cook. Like, you committed theft. Like, you shouldn't be admitting to this on a live stream because the police are probably on their way right now. Next trade comes in from the same person, from AJ. He got Trey McBride and 2 firsts. Okay, whatever's on the other side better be pretty nice. For Justin Herbert, Isaiah Likely, and Devon Achane. This is a 12-team Superflex league. 1-year rebuild. Oh, by the way, 1-year rebuild, that's the only kind of rebuild that should exist. Just as a side tangent, you should never be rebuilding for more than 1 year. The only exception to that I can ever possibly make is if you have taken over an orphan team that has been so utterly mismanaged that it has absolutely no assets on it at all, which I can say from experience, I have done that. I am currently the 2 seed in that league after a 2-year rebuild. Other than that, you should never be rebuilding for 2 years. If you have to take 2 years of entry fees and just get nothing out of it, it's very unlikely that you're ever going to recoup that value for the existence of that league. So look, sometimes mistakes happen and you get in that spot, but I'm just letting you know, you should never go into a rebuild thinking that it's 2 years, because you're digging yourself into a hole that you really can't get out of. But anyway, 1-year rebuild, getting Trey McBride and 2 firsts, Herbert, Achane, Likely. Okay. So I think, did you say this is tight end premium? Doesn't say. I'm going to assume it is. In a tight end premium format, I think Trey McBride and Justin Herbert are comparable. I still prefer Herbert, but like I'm probably just coping at this point because the Chargers just don't want to throw the ball. And we don't know when that's going to change. I'm still going to give the nod to Herbert, though, slightly. And then you have these 2 firsts, both in 2025. One of the first is early, he says, and one is late. The fact that one is early definitely saves this trade because an early first and the other first is definitely enough for Likely and Achane. So I think this is totally a good deal, totally a fair deal in a rebuild to get the McBride side here. I think that's solid. From Kobe, full PPR, 10 team, not super flex, not tight end premium. Rebuilding. A lot of trades from rebuilding teams. So the fact that this is not super flex definitely makes it closer. Doesn't say anything about the state of these picks right now, but we'll assume anybody trading 3 firsts for Jahmyr Gibbs is probably in a decent spot. So we'll say a late 25 first and then a 26 and 27 first. In one quarterback, I think this is about fair for Gibbs. I'm going to disregard the thirds for now. I think that's about fair for Gibbs. You just don't want to hope that one of those firsts eventually ends up being early. You know, some things can definitely go wrong for a team trading their next 3 future firsts for one running back with how fragile the position is. So unless they already have like an embarrassing amount of buying power on that team, there's some decent chance that that team could fall on hard times, end up having to rebuild, and that is how you make up your profit in the long run. All right. Maddie, in terms of trading David Montgomery and Debo Samuel, I've got them both valued. I have Montgomery valued around a mid-second. I have Debo valued around an early second. I think in some leagues, you could get more like an early second for Montgomery, and you could get more like a late first for Debo, especially after that game he had this week. But that's how I value them. So in terms of what would I be trying to get, I mean, I definitely like getting picks. You could try looking ahead a year and getting 26 or 27 rookie picks. Otherwise, you could try to take on some other players that are maybe underperforming, but should otherwise be valued alongside those guys and just buy into the discount that you're getting there. But lots of options. I would say, my first instinct is to just go to Fantasy Calc and look at some of the trades that have been completed with those players and see what other people are doing, right? Toronto Dave in the chat. What's up, Dave? He's the number one most supportive fantasy football connoisseur that I know. He seems to catch every live stream, every show people are doing. So appreciate having you in the chat, Dave. Sportosaur, good for you, man. Good for you trading Kyle Pitts for a mid-first and a mid-second before the season. That is definitely feeling pretty good right now. All right, next deal comes in from Carl McBuckets. Picks are currently the 3 latest. Would be surprised if at least 2 of them aren't late. Okay, sorry, Carl, but I think you might be the first person I'm going to truly roast here. Not really getting the thought process at all with this trade. 3 seconds and Trey Benson for Debo Samuel is just, I don't really get it. Debo Samuel is fine. He's 28 years old. He scores like a wide receiver 2 every season, other than that 1 year where his efficiency was like otherworldly and they gave him like 7 rushing touchdowns. I don't know. I view Benson as another second. So basically you traded 4 seconds for Debo Samuel. I just feel like if you have 4 seconds to play with, there's got to be something more interesting you can do with them than to buy Debo Samuel. I don't think he's the type of player that's like winning you a championship. And so I would rather just have 3 darts in the rookie draft personally. So yeah, I would aim higher if I'm consolidating that kind of value. I would want to be getting either multiple players that can help me, or I'd want to be getting like a real difference maker. out of it. All right, Shuck asks about this trade. Another rebuild in a 12-team start 10 superflex tight end premium receiving Puka Nacua. The first comes from a 5-0 team. Yeah, so Puka Nacua, he's been a great buy all year for rebuilding teams. People want to just forget about how awesome he was as a rookie because Cooper Kupp came out in week 1 and outplayed him, which isn't even true, by the way. Like, when Puka left the game, their stat lines were pretty similar, but Kupp was getting more of the like manufactured underneath stuff and Puka was getting more of the intermediate stuff. Either way, he looked fine to start the year. He had like 4 catches in 1.5 quarters and then he got hurt. He's awesome. He's gonna be awesome when he comes back. I'm definitely willing to trade Andrews, Deontay, and a late first for Puka. It's getting up there in terms of the price. And obviously in any rebuilding situation, I would rather not trade away a first because they really just get more valuable over time. But if you're going to do it, you want it to be for a player like Puka, a player who has that top 2 rounds of startup value in the range of outcomes. So I do not mind this deal. Traded Myers and Ford for Ladd. Congratulations on committing theft. All right. Got about 6 more deals to work through here. We're making good time. This one I know very well. This comes from Angus on Discord. This actually went down in the Pure Potential Invitational, the Dynasty startup that I launched early August when the Discord was still pretty new. And I'm in there with 11 other Discord members. I saw this trade go down. Funny fact about this screenshot, which I cropped for the stream, it has the names of the 2 parties involved scribbled out. However, as you can clearly see, the name is right here on the screen. So didn't quite get the anonymous screenshot in. But either way, I think Steve will happily stand on business here. Shuck received Drake London and Ladd McConkey. He sent away Marvin Harrison. This one, I have like borderline no opinion about, or at least I think I don't. I've got Marv right now as my 16th overall player. And I think my instinct would be to keep Marvin Harrison here just because you typically want the best player in the deal. I think he's shown enough in his first handful of games to say that he does have that extremely high upside that we were chasing when we drafted him. I don't think London has that type of upside. Even though he was really good last week, that was a game where Kirk Cousins threw 58 passes. Drake London is definitely silencing the haters, and I love to see it, but I don't think he's on that level. He's more like fancy Michael Pittman. And then Ladd McConkey, he's had awesome peripherals. I think his upside is high, but we do still have that limiting factor of the situation. And so I think I would just rather have the player who I think can break fantasy as opposed to these other 2 players who I do think are really good. They are really good players. So don't hate the deal. On paper, the value of it is fine. Drake London, I have at 1.25 base first. I have Ladd just on the edge of 1. So 2.25 for Harrison, who I have right in the middle of the 2 to 2.5 base first here. By the way, what I'm talking about is where I have them in my Dynasty rankings. I rank all players by what I call base first value, which I've explained in a couple of different videos, but it's just a standard term that I like to use for rookie firsts as opposed to saying late or early or mid. A base first is just a pick that could land anywhere on the spectrum, early to late. And so it's more of like a standard idea of what a first round pick would be. Either way, I have the players in tiers in like a descending order, linearly ranked with different asset classes for different players. And then I have them all with an assigned trade value. And so it helps me to kind of size up potential trades more quickly. Okay, Braden, I see that you are in trouble here. So let me help you out. Receive Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown in a 4th. Give away Mahomes, Godwin, Shaheed in the 3rd. Okay, you don't need help here. Take the Hurts side. Take the Jalen Hurts side. I have Jalen Hurts ranked right next to Patrick Mahomes in my rankings now. I don't see any reason to keep Patrick Mahomes on a pedestal in Dynasty anymore. And look, maybe I'll eat my words with that take, but I moved him down to my 9th overall player in Dynasty. He has not provided any kind of a positional advantage in well over a year. The Chiefs' offense doesn't function the way that it used to. They don't have to, because they have a good defense, because Mahomes has figured out how to dink and dunk his way to playoff appearances year after year. He's still an amazing quarterback, but he just doesn't play in a way that is conducive to a lot of fantasy scoring. And yeah, he's better than Jalen Hurts. Like in real life, I'm an Eagles fan. I would trade Jalen Hurts and a first-round pick so fast for Patrick Mahomes. But in fantasy, I think Hurts probably outscores him moving forward. I think Mahomes has more insulation, more real-life safety as a talent. But A.J. Brown is so much better than Godwin, Shaheed, and a third. And so that's where the deciding factor is with this deal. You have to take Hurts and A.J. Brown there, in my opinion. And Dave, you're absolutely right. Brian Thomas Jr. to the moon season. It is upon us here. 100% upon us here. Brian Thomas Jr. he's well on his way to the moon. He'll be landing any day now. All right. Next trade. I get to roast another one. Dan 6221 from the Discord. 12 teams, Superflex, start 10, half PPR, tight end premium. I got Amon-Ra. He knows he did something wrong, because he said, I know I gave up a lot, but these guys were on my bench and my starting lineup is pretty wild. Look, I can't say, maybe you have a wild team. Maybe you have an incredibly stacked team. I don't know if there's a level of stacked that makes this trade defensible. I think Amon-Ra is great. Top 5 Dynasty wide receiver. I have him right at 5. Right at 5. And he's really good. But the thing is, Jalen Waddle is also really good. Drake Maye was a top 3 pick at quarterback, which is the most valuable position in Superflex. And Xavier Worthy, for all his shortcomings, is still a first-round wide receiver in his rookie season who's scored multiple touchdowns so far and plays with Patrick Mahomes. This is too much value for me. I could see giving up Waddle and Worthy together for Amon-Ra. That seems reasonable to me. But adding Maye into the mix, who I know that consensus doesn't have him as high. I have him as like a top 30. I have him as a top 30 asset in Superflex. I actually would have him as the second best piece in this deal. But even if you go by the market perception, of Maye, which has him more in like the 40s, I still think that this is just too much. This is too much for Amon-Ra. I don't think Amon-Ra has like a 21, 22 point per game ceiling. I think he's definitely a very safe wide receiver. I think he's really, really good. But I'd have a hard time giving up all this for Jefferson, let alone Amon-Ra. So unfortunately, I don't think this one's a dub. And then here from Yellow Dog, another one of the YouTube members, one of the Pure Potential League winners, actually, top tier member, always hanging out in the member chat. This has to be the most nothing trade of the whole thing. Bryce Young for Tank Bigsby. I mean, look, I think it's over for Bryce Young. I think he's toast. I just don't think he can play. But with a rebuilding team in a 12 team Superflex, 6-point passing touchdowns, I think that this trade is harmless. The thing about Tank Bigsby is that he is definitely a lot better this year than he was last year. I would even go so far to say that he's been good, but he does not catch passes. Like literally, I think he has 2 targets this year in 5 games. And I don't think he's ever going to catch passes. And I don't think he's ever going to just bury Travis Etienne. So I feel like what Tank Bigsby is he's really just a thorn in the side of Travis Etienne. He's a guy that, were Etienne to be out for a game, you could definitely start him as like a mid to high end RB2. And in the meantime, he's like a flex play. but he's never going to be a running back that like truly burns you because you traded him away. He's never going to be a super high upside player. So if you want to swing that for Bryce Young and hope that he gets traded or gets another chance to play somewhere else, I think that's understandable. I would personally not trade for him because I just don't believe in him, but I think it's fine. All right. This one is from Jake D. Snake, who I think actually had one earlier, but he dropped another trade in here last minute. Traded a first for Jordan Addison. This is one where we're definitely going to need context. Or sorry, he traded Jordan Addison for a first. 12-team PPR Superflex, start 11. I'm rebuilding. Well, without knowing where that first is, I'd say this is an even deal. I think I might actually have Addison as an early second right now, but he might move his way back into the late first tier. It's weird, actually. That was loud. It was weird, actually, that Addison came back from that injury and had a 2-touchdown game where he only had like 2 targets. And I was like, all right, everybody, let's not lose our minds. Like, he only had 2 targets. And then this past week, he ended up not scoring any fantasy points, but he had like a 28% target share or something. So if he could just put the two together and have the peripherals and the production in the same week, he would start to look kind of good. I think this is fine for either side, really. But I do lean towards the first here just because, as always, I'm hesitant about trading firsts. And I think when you do it, you should be aiming as high as possible. So even if I have a player ranked as a late first in value, that doesn't mean that I want to take my late first and then trade for that player. It means this player is worth a collection of assets that is equal to a late first. It doesn't mean I want to go out and trade a late first. Like, if I have players I have in late first tier would be like DJ Moore, Jonathan Brooks, Jameson Williams. Like, I would be really hard pressed to actually trade a first round pick straight up for any of those players because you only have so many firsts you can trade. And I would much rather package a first together and try to go get like Jalen Waddle, go get Rome Odunze. If you're contending, aim higher. Like, go find a team that's 0-4 that happens to roster Kenneth Walker or Saquon Barkley or Devon Achane or something, and like try to go and get that high end piece. So I'm very, very hesitant about trading firsts for players that are right on the fringe of first round value. And I'm not a huge believer in Jordan Addison in terms of the ceiling. I think he's a fine wide receiver. His numbers as a rookie were actually not that impressive on a per route basis. It's just that he ran a ton of routes last year, but he wasn't really dominating target earning. And the stretch that Jefferson missed with injury really skewed the sample on him. But who knows? Still had first round capital. He plays in a good offensive system. He could definitely take a step forward. Definitely possible. Okay, just a couple more trades I want to get through here, and then maybe I can knock out a couple more questions and we'll get out of here. This one comes from Flare Spion. That's almost a Pokemon. 12-team Superflex PPR, 6 points per passing touchdown, half tight end premium, start 11. Best ball league. Tanking for the 101. First Dynasty best ball question of the day. Very interesting format. Totally different from managed, honestly. In this case, you're trading away Fields, Bucky Irving, and a third for a 25-second and a 2026 first as part of an effort to tank for the 101. So I think we don't know anything about the second, unfortunately. But I think that in a deal where you're getting a first, I think that this is fair. Bucky Irving is an exciting young player. He's going to get the start this week. I'm really excited to see what he does with it. But my instincts tell me that there is a glass ceiling on Bucky Irving's value upside. I don't think this is going to be a Kyron Williams situation. I don't think we're ever going to see Bucky Irving rise to any kind of a crazy level of dynasty value. So he's not a player that I would be terrified to trade away. And I do think Fields could have his value evaporate really quickly So I like the idea of kind of cashing in on that, getting 2 safe picks here that are going to gain value, and cashing out on Fields. So I'm a fan. Okay, I'm not sure if any other trades got sent in. This is the last one that I actually have a screenshot of that I was able to put into the load up into OBS before we went live here. Trade Benson and a second in exchange for Christian Kirk, Tony Pollard, and Aiden O'Connell. Another trade to, it says, build the vault. Opponent is attempting to contend, needed some cheap juice. So I assume you're rebuilding here. This is a good haul for the pieces you sent away. Aiden O'Connell carries no value to me. He is not a starting caliber quarterback, in my opinion. So I would say Benson and Pollard is kind of a wash if you're looking at next season and beyond. You know, Pollard going to be 28, still fending off Tyjae Spears. Benson is going to hopefully have a chance to lead that backfield, or at least lead a committee in that backfield in Arizona. And then Christian Kirk's just been really hard to trust. He's been really inconsistent, and his ceiling isn't very high either, just with the type of player that he is. So I'm very comfortable cashing out on Kirk for a second. I think this is a fine deal for both sides. Nobody's getting robbed here. Nobody's giving up something that they'll regret giving up later. I don't think. I think this is just a fine swap from a rebuilder to a contender. All right. And I think those are all the deals. We're going to close this thing out in a minute or two. If anybody has any other last minute thoughts or questions, let me know. Just a little context on the promo in the bottom right corner. If you're interested in obtaining a fantasy points data suite, which is what I typically use for my research, you see a lot of cool tweets about it if you follow like Ryan Heath or Scott Barrett on Twitter. It has a lot of cool stuff. I do have a promo code if you want to get 25% off of that. It helps me out because I get a little commission on that. So if you're interested, you can go do that. And also, if you go down to the description under this, you'll see a link to the Pure Potential Discord. So if you want to be involved the next time that I do something like this, go ahead and join. I post announcements about this type of thing, and that's where I collect like the trades and stuff. And there's a lot of Dynasty chat going on in there. But also down there in the description, my Dynasty team breakdown service that I sell is available. You can click on the Google form there and fill that out if you're interested in having me break down your whole Dynasty team and give you some tips on what you should be doing, what's the direction of your team, what should your long-term goals be. That's something that I offer as well. And finally, YouTube membership. I do another stream like this once a week just for YouTube members. A little bit more personal since there's only about 25 to 30 of them at the moment. But I answer questions. I go over rankings changes. YouTube members get access to those streams and also get access to my Dynasty rankings, which I mentioned earlier are updated every single week. So those are just some things you might be interested in. Dave, I appreciate your support, man. You've been around since the days of the Factory Tour podcast that I did for Dynasty Football Factory. So it's been a long journey. I'm having a lot of fun building up the channel now, and appreciate seeing you in the comments. Hector, should you buy Polk right now? Probably. Jalen Polk's probably a decent trade target right now because he's been so uninvolved. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. He's been unproductive. He's been involved. He's been running most of the routes the last 2 weeks. He's had decent target shares the last 2 weeks. The problem is Jacoby Brissett targets have not been high quality. And Polk, in his own right, has struggled a bit, but that's not necessarily surprising for a rookie. I think he definitely has a chance to rise in value over the back half of the year. And what are you really paying for him right now? A late second, early third. He's probably pretty gettable, I'd say. Hayden does everything. I'm rebuilding. I have 7 picks this year. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 3 thirds. Should I trade any picks or keep them? I'm always going to lean towards keeping picks in a rebuilding situation, but the answer to this question always depends on what you're getting for them. If someone in your league really wants those picks and they're going to give you something really cool and fun for those picks, then trade them. I will say this. If I have a rebuilding team, I am almost never going out of my way to say, hey guys, I want to trade my picks. What are you going to give me for them? If someone approaches me about trading them, then it just comes down to price. If I like the price. Let's end it on this one. What are your thoughts on keep, trade, cut? Is it useful or useless? Keep, trade, cut, I think can be useful if you are using it in a thoughtful way. I would never just go on keep, trade, cut and take the rankings there as gospel. But I think that in season, it's kind of a good way to see how people are reacting in real time to what we're seeing. And just understanding that those opinions are not going to be shared by every single person that you play in a league with. But, you know, you see like someone like Kenneth Walker is probably shooting up the rankings on keep, trade, cut. And that movement is probably more accurate than what you would see on Dynasty Data Lab through startup ADP or Fantasy Calc, which is only based on real trades that have been completed, because those things are a little bit slower to react. I think they're more accurate in the long run, but they can be slower to react. So I think it's helpful when we have big changes where we get really big new information. I think keep, trade, cut can be helpful to see how the masses are kind of processing that and how they're reframing their perspective of certain players. So that's kind of my thought. I like to look at it. I like to use it. But like any tool, it has certain applications. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. I appreciate you all hanging out with me. This has been really fun. I'm going to keep trying to do a stream every week. We'll see what the topics will be. I could do something like this again if you liked it, but something to do live because it's fun and I don't have to edit, which is great. That saves me so much time. So thanks again for coming by, guys. I hope you all have some good week 6 matchups. Hope you all win. And maybe some of these trades gave you some ideas of things you could try in your leagues. Good luck. Go send some offers. Go win your leagues. Go get the 101. Whatever you're doing. Hope it goes well for you. And I'll catch you guys next time.